Welcome to Wandering Jews at J Squared Adventures. Travel far enough and you meet yourself. We're your hosts.
I'm Scott Copeland.
I'm Rivka Brahma.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Sorel Weinstein before we head into today's episode. So Sorel, who was instrumental and my partner in creating and molding the podcast up until now, is unfortunately moving on. She's going to be leaving Wandering Jews and J Squared Adventures. And on my behalf and on behalf of everyone at J Squared Adventures, and I'm sure everyone who has listened and learned with Sorel, we just want to wish her all the best in everything that she works to accomplish. And on that note, with Sorel's exit, I want to welcome to the podcast Rivka Brahma. Rivka's going to be joining me as my new partner in crime. And I don't want to embarrass Rivka, but Rivka is our director of content at J Squared Adventures. She's an outstanding educator, a veteran in the field, and she's going to be bringing a new look, a new sound, and some new ideas to the podcast. So I'm very pleased that she's going to be joining and looking forward to continuing to working together as we always do. And now, let's dive into it. Close your eyes and picture the Acropolis in Athens. A hilltop citadel that once embodied public life, government, sovereignty, and culture, the beating heart of the golden age of Greece.
Since I've never been to Athens, I can take us to our local Acropolis, a hilltop compound dedicated to memory and meaning, where the stories of the past meet the struggle of the present and aspirations of the future. Here stand the institutions that shapes Israel's civic and cultural life: the Knesset, the seat of the government, the Supreme Court, the halls of justice, the Israel Museum, and the new fabulous National Library, sacred shrines of creativity and knowledge, and the Givat Ram campus, which is the home of the Hebrew University, a center for scholarship and debate. Together they form a modern Acropolis, a place designed to inspire and to serve as both foundation and springboard for Israel's vision of itself and its role in the world.
As you walk along the boulevard and approach the rise that houses the Knesset, Israel's parliament, you reach a small courtyard at the edge of the Rose Garden. This spot is home to the symbolic epicenter of Jerusalem's modern Acropolis, Beno Elkan's Knesset Menorah. Its branches stretch across the square, and it tells the saga: centuries of exile and return, persecution and resilience, destruction and renewal. Its 7 branches echo the temple menorah of ancient Jerusalem, yet its story spans millennia.
It embodies survival, sovereignty, and spiritual endurance. And fittingly, this national symbol was created by a German Jewish sculptor who fled the very regime that tried to erase the people whose story he immortalized.
So who created this massive bronze menorah? Who was Beno Elkan?
Beno Elkan, a prominent German Jewish sculptor, fled Nazi Germany in 1933 and immigrated to England. He lived through the collapse of the German society after World War I and witnessed the rise of anti-Semitism firsthand.
By the time Hitler came to power, Elkan was already deeply aware of what it meant to be a Jew in Europe, a precarious, vulnerable identity. When the Nazis took control, Elkan fled Germany. Imagine the weight he carried, the fear, the knowledge that family, friends, and centuries of European Jewish life were under threat. Yet in that exile, he was invited to take on a monumental task, to create a work that tells the entire story of the Jewish people from biblical times up until the modern era.
It was Lord Edwin Samuel, son of the first British High Commissioner, Herbert Samuel, who proposed gifting the infant state of Israel a menorah sculpture in 1950. At his request, sculptor Beno Elkan began work immediately, even before financing was finalized. Contributions came from British MPs across the parties, private citizens, bank, and corporation. The menorah was presented to the Knesset in 1956 by the British Labour Party in honor of Israel's 8th Independence Day.
The menorah first stood near Fruman House, the temporary Knesset residence on King George Street, today a new museum dedicated to the original site of the Israeli parliament. Until today, Jerusalem old-timers call the adjacent small garden the Menorah Garden, even though the menorahs resided at its current address from 1966, when the new Knesset building next to the Rose Garden was dedicated.
Elkan hoped the menorah would be placed inside the Knesset for optimal lighting, but it was ultimately installed outside, allowing the public full access to enjoy its beauty. Maybe it was a nod to the custom of Pirsum Hanes, publicizing the miracle, the placing of the Chanukiah. We do that in Hanukkah, facing the Chanukiah outwards so people can look and enjoy and remember the miracle. Maybe it's a nod to that. Also, as a kid, I really remember coming to see the menorah, I think on our first field trip as a kindergarten kid.
When you first look at the menorah, you notice, of course, its shape, a central stem with 3 branches on each side. It mirrors the 7-branch temple menorah, but Elkan went far beyond mere replication.
Each branch is like a timeline, yet not strictly chronological. He used contrast. Sometimes one side shows suffering and the other's hope. One branch tells a story of exile and the other one a return. The Knesset Menorah is more than a giant candlestick. It features 29 panels illustrating major events and figures in Jewish history, from biblical prophets to modern statehood.
Every figure, every scene on this towering menorah has a story, and each story is meant to make us think about our past, about resilience, about the continuity of the Jewish people.
The menorah's design directly confronts one of the most painful symbols in Jewish history, the scene on the Arch of Titus in Rome. The triumphal arch is located in Via Sacra near the Roman Forum. It was erected in 81 CE, and it marked the commemoration of Emperor Titus' victory at the Great Jewish Revolt and the destruction of the Second Temple.
The famous relief depicts Roman soldiers carrying the looted temple menorah in a triumphal procession, making the arch a symbol of Jewish defeat and the beginning of the 2 millennia-long diaspora. By using the menorah's ancient form, specifically the one depicted on the Arch of Titus, as the foundation for his work and for the new state's official emblem, Elkan helped claim this symbol of subjugation as a symbol of rebirth. The Knesset Menorah effectively transforms the image of exile into a monument celebrating national spirit, political sovereignty, and modern resurrection.
At the base, there are 2 inscriptions. One is Shema Yisrael prayer, the central Jewish declaration of faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, expressing belief in God and unity. And next to it, nearby, is the inscription from Zechariah 4:6, not by might, not by power, but my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. This inscription emphasizes that the narrative is ultimately spiritual, not merely political or military.
Ironically, this very verse from Zechariah, is recited as the Haftorah, the prophetic reading, on the Shabbat of Hanukkah, the festival that tells the story of the Maccabees' successful armed resistance against a foreign occupier. It highlights the complex tension between physical force and spiritual endurance in the Jewish saga.
Elkan arranged the panels thematically, not strictly in order, but to invite wondering, curiosity, and interpretation. For example, the panel features Jacob wrestling an angel, an event that granted him the new name Israel, meaning he who wrestles with God. And also, it depicts the red-haired youth, David, we know him as King David, facing the Philistine, Goliath, the huge, mighty Goliath, symbolizing faith overcoming brute strength.
Moving up the central trunk, you'll see Moses supported by Aaron and Hur during the battle with Amalek, an image of leadership strengthened by community support.
Higher up, Ruth and Rachel, Rachel and Ruth, appear together. Ruth, the convert, the symbol of loyalty, gleans the sheaves. She's also the forebearer of King David, who we mentioned before, and the root of the Messianic dynasty.
Rachel, weeps for her children, embodying the pain of exile and homelessness, as described in Yirmiyahu 31:15. A voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children because they are no more.
Across other branches, the biblical and the modern meet. not only biblical scenes, as the weeping Rachel is juxtaposed with the efforts of the chalutzim, the pioneers arriving in Israel. Passionate youth with dreams of changing the faith of the people, embodying the struggle of the Zionist movement for national liberation and return to the indigenous homeland.
Each panel is a vignette of identity, reminding the viewer that the Jewish story is not linear. It loops, struggles, returns, and begins anew.
You know, Scott, as an Israeli, I was very surprised that in the state, the Jews or anyone else calls the Chanukiah a menorah. What we light in the 8th night of Hanukkah is a Chanukiah that has 8 branches and one central trunk, the shamash.
Totally, Rivka. You're 100% right, as always. And the menorah is really a different story. The menorah has 7 branches and a central trunk. The menorah became a Jewish symbol very early on. In fact, drawings of menorot, the plural of menorah, appear, for example,
on coins of Matityahu's Antigonus. These Hasmonean coins feature a menorah with rounded branches, confirming its iconic status even before the temple's destruction.
Professor Nachman Avigad, in another example, when he did excavations in the mansions that belonged to the Second Temple Jerusalem elite in what today is the Jewish Quarter, he uncovered an entire neighborhood that stood before the Roman destruction of the city of Jerusalem. A wall in that house, what's referred to as the Herodian mansions, displays a crudely drawn menorah. And in synagogues in late antiquity, both in the land of Israel and in surrounding countries, the menorah is often seen as an integral design element.
The menorah first appears in the Bible as part of the instructions for building the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary used by Israelites in the wilderness. In Exodus, chapters 25 and 37, God tells Moses to make a lampstand of pure gold, with 7 branches and decorative elements like almond blossoms. This menorah wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a symbol of light and divine presence. It stood in the holy place alongside the table of the bread and other holy artifacts, formatting part of the sacred ritual space in the tent of meeting.
In 1949, the newly established parliament of the State of Israel, the Knesset, voted on a new national symbol. The flag was already decided on by the World Zionist Organization, but the young state was in search of its own symbol.
And in the years before the internet, cell phones, and social media, a campaign was launched, an open call inviting people to send their suggestion. What symbol would best capture the spirit and the essence of the first republic of the Jewish people?
And so the menorah, arguably the Jewish people's most common and enduring symbol, was adopted as the emblem of the State of Israel. Like many things in Israel, the old new land, the menorah's significance is both modern and ancient. It represents continuity and the enduring spirit of the Jewish people, and the idea that light and values can guide a nation.
The idea is most pronounced during Hanukkah, when a version of the menorah, the Chanukiah, the Hanukkah lamp, becomes a central fixture in public life, seen in town squares, park, and municipal buildings across Israel and in the Jewish world.
The winter festival is celebrated precisely to underscore the menorah's meaning as a symbol of light conquering darkness. It reminds us that even during the shortest days and longest nights of the year, we possess the spiritual power to expand the light and overcome despair.
Nations around the world use monumental art to embody their ideals and values. Consider the Washington Monument, a massive tribute to justice and equality.
Or how about the Eiffel Tower in Paris, universally recognized symbol of French ingenuity and national pride?
Similarly, the Knesset Menorah tells us Israel's story. It merges history, art, and moral instruction. The menorah was gifted by the British Parliament in 1956, yet once placed in Jerusalem, it took on a new life, becoming Israel's own civic monument, teaching lessons about solidarity, leadership, and the challenges met and those still ahead.
Every Israeli parliamentarian or citizen walking into the Knesset complex today passes this towering monument. Its presence can be a profound reminder that governance must be guided by memory, history, and moral vision, and not just by power.
The challenge of each of us is to take the time, stop under the menorah branches, and consider where the Jewish people have been, how we choose to tell our stories, how am I part of these stories, and the immense responsibility that each of us has to keep the lamp lit and to tell this story and bring more light.
Next time you see the Knesset Menorah, pause on a single panel. If you need a cheat sheet, like sometimes I do, check our extra resources on the website. Consider its story, its placement, and its message. And remember, every story on this menorah, from Moses to the founding of the state, is carried forward when we choose to hear the story, to retell it, and to make it our own. And now, something for the road. A tip, a recommendation to help you make every journey your own.
Hi, I'm Miri Nitzan, here to give you something for the road. I'm Chicago-born but grew up in Be'er Sheva. My family made Aliyah when I was 9 years old. My 3 kids, on the other hand, are third-generation Israelis on their father's side, and I'm very proud of that. I've been a tour educator since 2016, fulfilling a lifelong dream to combine my love of Israel with my love of people, and I do love my job. I've just had my breakfast of bread and olive oil with olives that my husband pickled from the fruit of the tree in our garden. The olive is one of the 7 species, Shivat HaMinim, that the land of Israel is blessed with, and one of the 3 that we all bless on our Shabbat table every week, the dagan, bread, tirosh, wine, and itzhar, the light-giving oil that connects our spirits with God and fills our hearts with hope. Olives have been grown in this region for thousands of years. The production of olive oil was central to the economy of the region from biblical times through the 20th century and is a central and growing agricultural branch today. The harvest of olives even has its own special word in Hebrew, masik, and its season follows that of the grape harvest, the batzir. Starting around Sukkot, the harvest continues until just before Hanukkah. In ancient times, at the end of the masik and the production of the first pressed olive oil, was an agricultural festival, the Festival of Light, when the first of the oil was brought to the temple. In the days of the temple, pure consecrated olive oil was used to light the 7-branched menorah that was always to be lit. Now, we all know the story of that last little jug of oil that the Maccabees found in the desecrated temple and lasted miraculously for 8 days. But why 8 days? Well, there are a number of Midrash explanations for the length of the holiday. My favorite has to do with where the consecrated olive oil was produced. The Mishnah tells us that the olive presses, the batei bad, that were known to produce the olive oil of the highest, purest quality were in Tekoa in the Judean hills, or from Gush Chalav in the Galilee. Each of these places is said to have been a 4-day walk from the temple. So what's the connection, you ask me? Well, since there were no more sealed jugs of consecrated oil to be found in the temple, oil needed to be brought from Tekoa. That's 4 days in each direction until the new oil could be used to light the menorah. 8 days the miracle needed to last. Olive oil isn't just for light. It has always had many uses, in medicine and cosmetics, anointing kings and priests even. But for most of us, it's its culinary use that is primary. For cooking in, for dipping our bread, for seasoning our salads, and I just love olive oil. Of course, it's not that simple. There are different qualities of olive oil, different extraction methods, old and new, and many different types of olives. In ancient times, according to the Mishnah, there were 3 varieties of olives and 3 levels of extraction. Nowadays, we grow at least a dozen varieties in Israel. In some of the batei bad, they use modern equipment that produces the highest quality of olive oil. For example, in Rish Lakish in Sipori, presided over by the lovely Ayala, who is a world-renowned olive oil specialist. But many places still use the ancient stone smasher to break the olives, just as we find in archaeological sites all over the country. Did you know that olive oil tasting is a thing, like wine tasting, with a special vocabulary to describe it? And like wine, there are courses that teach you how to be an olive oil taster and also teach blending, like blending wine. Personally, I'm very picky about my olive oil, as I am about my coffee, tahini, my beer, picky. I don't like an olive oil that has a strong peppery sensation in the throat. The word for that is pungency. And I prefer a deep nutty as opposed to a light herbal flavor. My favorite is actually the oldest local variety, the Suri olives. Sadly, it's becoming less and less common. Luckily for me, I have friends who still grow that variety, and they keep me supplied with their wonderful olive oil. Remember that it was an olive branch that the dove brought back after the flood? It is a symbol of hope for a new and better future, for peace. This connection is brought to life in places like Sindianat HaGalil, where Jewish and Arab women work together in the olive groves and the presses to learn from each other and to enrich each other's lives, working together towards a common future. There are other joint enterprises involving oil harvest and production around the country that shine a light for all of us. In Gush Chalav, in the Galilee, one of the places that I mentioned that were a 4-day walk from the temple, they still grow olives to this day. There you can see groves of olive trees that are many hundreds of years old. I love the way the olive tree rejuvenates itself, the way the young saplings that grow around the aging trunk bind themselves together to create a new trunk as the old one grows hollow and dies away. It reminds me of our strength as a people, each generation rising from all around the Jewish world to bind ourselves together for a common future, growing from the old, but fresh and new. I have so much more to share with you. So come on a J-Squared adventure and join us to see the ancient trees and olive presses and to go for an olive oil tasting at one of our many excellent Batei Bad, or to just eat some delicious Israeli food flavored with local olive oil.
Thanks for listening. Dive deeper into the world of travel on our J-Squared Adventures website. That's jsquaredadventures.com. And stay in the loop with our latest adventures on all our social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all under J2 Adventures.
And if you enjoyed hanging out with us, don't forget to leave us a comment, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, travel safely and keep wondering. I'm Rivka.
I'm Scott. See you soon at J Squared Adventures, Wandering Jews.